this together.
Right.
Um, so with that being said, switching over to racism and how that continues to show up time and time again, and even now in this pandemic, um, it's showing us yet again just how racist we are, not only here in the States, but even globally with some of the things I've been reading that's been happening to people of the Asian community, specifically more Chinese, um, or people who they may think, people may look and may think you're Chinese. Um, so I don't want to just say the whole Asian diaspora because it's so diverse, you know. So it's mainly people who people think are Chinese or look Chinese, and how they are being treated, and it's just so nasty. One person sprayed Lysol on another person. You know, I'm just like, really, people, you know. So I for me and having this conversation and ongoing conversations, as I do plan to continue to talk about mental health, about racism, and then grief and how we grieve communally. I knew I wanted to make sure I was reaching out and talking to people from the Asian community, and not so saying now you're not the spokesperson, you know, for your community by no means. And I'm
Oh, they
not
would not want me as a spokesperson.
right.
I got too
So
big of a
I'm
mouth for that.
definitely not doing that. But I am finding it important to try to get as many different voices as I can, to really speak to what is happening. I want to enlighten myself and others who are really interested in the way racism is happening now in the midst of COVID-19. So I know if you would you be open to talk a little bit about your personal background, or is that too much?
Personal background with racism? Sure.
Okay. And then maybe sharing if it's anything you've noticed, or even just the conversations that's been happening larger, some of the things our president have has been saying. And then the recent read I had seen by Andrew Yang encouraging more Asians to show Americanness. And it's a lot of things I like about Yang. I think if he would have stayed in, I would have probably voted for him in some ways because I like his progressive thoughts around technology. But time and time again, every time racism was brought up and people would talk to him about how he joked, and made jokes about himself as an Asian person, and even now with this latest him. I just feel like it's something missing there. And I see him doing a lot of things that even, you know, black people would do. Is you try to calm the dominant culture by showing them you can be a good um American, aka slash code word, you can be a good white person. And that didn't sit well with me. And I'm really interested into, you know, again, your experiences and what are you saying now with uh, COVID-19?
First, I'll address the Andrew Yang statement about being more American, that the Asian community should be more American. I think that's kind of plays into the model minority myth. And I'm not going to endorse it and I'm not going to get it either. I know where he's coming from, but I
Right.
also think that what he should have said should have played more into specifics. What does it mean to be more American? Um, Now, on one hand, when we talk about, I think, Asian Americans, it's important to note that we have this, and it's not just East Asian either. It could be any people who are not, who haven't been here for 200, 300 years. There's always going to be the perpetual otherness hanging over
Yeah.
us. But there's also should also just understand that there's a distinction between first generation and then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation. So it naturally, if you're a first generation, fresh off the boat, immigrant of any kind, you're naturally going to gravitate to people who are culturally and linguistically related to you. That's just a fact. I lived in um, Kazakhstan and South Korea for a number of years. And yes, I became friends and joined communities that were English speaking and that were westernized because it was a commonness between us, commonality. Um, but when you get into the second, third, fourth generation, there should be a natural progression to branch out into the general population and to be functional within that population. But that doesn't mean to give up the mother culture. You can still celebrate it. I mean, to say that Asian Americans should become more American, how is that? Why would we want to be more American if the Italian Americans or Irish Americans are still celebrating their ancestral cultures as well? We still have Irish American who love being Irish, and Italian Americans who celebrate Italian food, everything about being Italian. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating that, the ancestral culture. But at the same time, you should still be functional within the general culture and not limit yourself in terms of relationships to only to your ethnicity. So, I think that I'm kind of apart from that because I am an adoptee, and
Yeah.
so I didn't have the that tie to Korean American culture or the Korean language,
Yeah.
and instead I was pushed more to celebrate the Italian culture and all things Italian because that was my adoptive family's culture. And then I'm somewhere in between. And at the same time, I still make sure that I'm talking to everybody and I can still function in the general society.
Right.
So, what I think when he says be more American, that's more for the first or second generation.
Mm.
But he needs to phrase it in a way that is culturally sensitive and sensitive
Yeah.
to the nuance of the newer immigrant populations. We shouldn't have to give up uh, where where we're from or where we want to go. It's not a
Right.
zero sum game, and I
Right.
think it would be a disservice considering we're living in a multicultural, pluralistic society.
Right. Well,
There's
that
no
was a
such
good
thing as a
distinction.
pure American culture.
Right. Oh no. No. I think that was a good and that was good for me to hear and think through too is thinking okay, maybe it's different messaging for each, generation. Um okay. I can hear that. I can hear that. What about, the messaging that's coming from President Trump and how is that hitting you?
I tend to ignore his rhetoric in the same way I would ignore my bombastic racist uncle at Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So I don't know what to say about. It's racist. Most logical people of sound mind know it's racist. But there is going to be some types of people who don't have the ability to understand why that it's racist or why it would be racist.
Right. It seems like he's pretending like he don't know why himself
I
it's
don't think
racist.
that th- I think there's a lot of people who don't know that it's racist. They're being told it's racist, but because they don't have the background, they've never experienced it themselves in the way that you or I might have. They might have experienced racism, but it's not to the same degree as we would have, and they will filter their experiences differently. And so if we say it's racist, it's racist, it's racist, I don't think that no matter how many times we say it, it's not going to get through. So we
Right.
have to be able to have this conversation with people who don't understand in a way that
Right.
we're going to be more receptive to. Because people